Welcome to the Intentional Encourager podcast, where each episode brings you compelling conversations and stories designed to entertain, enlighten, and encourage. And now here's your host, Brian Sexton.
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton. I am intentionally encouraged when I see people doing business the right way. And for the last 15 years, Damon Burton and his team at SEO National have done just that. Now you might say, Brian, what can they do for me in my business? I'm going to tell you what they can do for you. They can help you understand search engine optimization. There are a lot of players out there in the marketplace, but you want a team of people that are going to be dedicated to working with you and helping you to understand search engine optimization and how you can show up higher on search engines so that you can bring more revenue into your business. Damon and his team are full of integrity, honesty, decency, and trust. And if that's important to you and that encourages you, I would encourage you to give them a call today at 855-736-6285 or go to SEOnational.com and get a free quote and tell them you heard about it on the Intentional Encourager podcast. Get ready for a dynamite conversation coming up right now on the Intentional Encourager podcast. And welcome into the Intentional Encourager podcast. I'm your host, Brian Sexton. Thank you for joining us again today. Part two, as you see my lovely hotel room background here as I record in Conway, Arkansas. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they might, but I'm in a lovely Hilton Garden Inn. You see the coffee maker off to my left here. I'm looking into the camera and I'm thinking the left, right? What, it's like Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hands. So, here it is. But a awesome guest. We had such a good time in part one of our conversation. Why not have a part two?
Let's just
and
keep
that
this
is
going.
that is with Andrea Sandefur. And you can find her at Andrea Sandefur Music. You can find her Facebook, Instagram. She's going to tell you all the different ways you can find her. But right here, right now, you can find her on the Intentional Encourager podcast. Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah. Really excited to be back for more.
In part two, as you guys know, we dive into the story. And so I want to dive into Andrea's story because a lot of times, and we were talking about songwriting in part one, there are times where people, especially that are creatives or songwriters or authors, they dive in and they take their inspiration and creativity from places they've been, good, bad, and indifferent. And so, Andrea, let's take time to really dive into your story. Go as far back as you want to go, and I'll jump in from time to time with a couple of questions and things like that. But take me as far back as you want to go and tell me your story.
Yeah, cool. As far back as I want. That's a lot of license there. But
I was born in 19, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. What's your guess? No, I won't put you on the spot there. No.
1991.
No. Oh, you're so kind.
Thank you.
No.
That was a year after I graduated high school. So I look like I graduated high school in 1990. So, yeah.
Those that see the video, you can just tell that might not be accurate. But so I haven't always been someone who's pursued songwriting. It's just not something that I really thought anyone did. Like, I don't know where I thought songs came from, but it was just not something I ever really thought about doing until it was actually my husband's grandfather, who was a poet. One day, because I would sing at church and I played the piano, and but one day he handed me one of his poems and he said, Hey kid, I think that's what he said. He would always say that. It was so endearing. Hey kid, I've always wanted this to be a song. Do you think you could put it to music? And I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, I could try. So I did. I sat down with his lyrics or his poem, and I had to kind of rearrange it a little bit to get it to fit into a song structure. But I didn't really know what I was doing, but ended up writing a melody to it, and he loved it. And that was my first project. And it caught fire. I loved it. It was really fun to see that come to fruition, to see a song born at the hands of my creativity, and to partner with him in that. It was really special. So I love to think back to that first song. He has now passed away, and we miss him so much. And I'm really thankful to have that. I actually have his original memo pad papers with his poem on it, with all my scribbles. And I'm glad I still have those. It's really special. So
it would be neat. And I love that story part of it because, him being a poet, and him saying to you, I would always wanted to see this poem turned into song. And in a lot of ways, that's what it is. And we talked in the first episode, and I want to continue to hear more, but it always fascinates me. Like, you hear something said in conversation, and poets have that idea of, okay, let's take a thought. I see something, let me write it down. Or maybe someone says something to them, like, maybe here's what was on my mind. Okay. As I was thinking about what you said, that maybe there was somebody that said, it'd be cool. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. You know what else I'd like to do? I'd like to buy the world a Coke and keep it company. Somebody goes, man, I'd make an excellent jingle, And I'm kind of being silly there for a minute, but that's kind of how the creative mind works in those times of, there's a song there, and your wife's grandfather or your husband's grandfather knew that there was something there.
Yeah.
Did you know that there was something there, or were you just like, I'm trying to honor this man who entrusts me with something deeply personal that maybe he has or hasn't shared with the world, and now he wants me to turn it into a song? What were you feeling? Were you feeling pressure? Were you feeling euphoria? What was that like? I mean, I can't. I'm trying to wrap my mind around how someone might have felt in that moment.
Yeah, I remember feeling very incapable, like that I didn't know what I was doing, and that I knew enough about music to know what a nice melody might sound like. And I was really thankful for the way it actually came out. Looking back, it's not a bad song. It's probably not my best, but it was a great first. And I thank God for that. I thank him that he led me to the melody that he did. And it's this very simple chord. It's just the key of C. And I think there was an F and a G and an A minor in there. And that was it.
Yeah, pretty basic. Yeah.
It was simple. And the fact that he loved it and I got to sing it for him a couple times on this side of heaven and then get through it at his funeral without bawling my eyes out was a huge gift. That I have that history with that dear man. And it, I think it still floors me that he trusted me with that. And he, was so pleased with how it turned out that it still kind of floors me, actually.
Well, and so that kind of, as I'm hearing you talk about that, did you always grow up singing? Did you always grow up around music? Because I started singing when I was 3.
Nice.
My dad got me up singing when I was 3. I never wanted to put that kind of pressure on my son. And I told him that. I said, the reason that I didn't was I wanted you to find it on your own.
Yeah.
I wanted you to discover it. So what about for you? Did you find it on your own, or did somebody kind of push you in that direction?
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Very musical family. We started piano lessons in first grade. All of us kids, we were kind of, well, expected. Yes, I'll say that word. And it was okay. You know, we were in piano lessons for at least a year or two. And
by the way, your maiden name was Hammersmith.
Yes.
So let's get that out there.
Yeah.
So
you will take piano lessons.
Yes. Do we have to go get the sledgehammer? And
Exactly.
you told me before we started recording that's what they called your sister. Your
Yes.
sister was the sledgehammer.
Yeah.
And-
She was sledgehammer. I was ball peen because I was shorter, so it was just kind of this running joke. She was a volleyball player, and she could go up to the net and just completely slam the ball, and so that's how she inherited the name. And
did she just start pointing at people and go, "You've been hammered"?
Yeah, she should have.
Yeah.
It would have been a good catchphrase. But yeah, it was a great education, though. Honestly, I'm really, really thankful my parents were insistent that we had that musical foundation, and piano is a great place to start.
Yeah.
Honestly, every time I talk to parents about music education, I say, the piano is never a bad place to start, and it's never too late, honestly, to start. The piano, it's very visual. You can see the notes, you can feel them with your fingers. It's not as yes, there's more than one note at a time, where if you're playing a woodwind or a brass instrument, it's one note at a time. And so it can be a little complicated in that, but it's a great foundation. And
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton. Prices are going up by the day. We've got to find ways to increase our household revenue. Now, a couple ways you could do that is, one, you could go and ask your boss for a raise. But if that doesn't work, I've got another way for you. It's my friend Joe Hart's program called Products for Profit. Joe's been a guest here on the Intentional Encourager podcast and told his story about how learning retail arbitrage changed his life, and he's been helping thousands of people change theirs. Now, retail arbitrage is simply this. It's taking a product and buying it and then reselling it online for a higher price, and you keep the profits. And guess what? Amazon and Walmart use third-party resellers every day to fulfill their customer orders. I want you to go to productsforprofit.com or productsforprofit.carrd.co. Get connected to Joe's team. Tell him you heard about it on the Intentional Encourager podcast and start making money today with Products for Profit. And now let's get back to more great conversation on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
I took at least 5 solid years of piano lessons, but so my sister, my older sister, the non-sledgehammer sister, she is a concert pianist to this day. She's very, very talented. She went through college and played in college, and is still, of course, to this day performing, and did everything the teachers asked her to. She could sight read. She wrote the music beautifully. And I play by ear.
I do too.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So how frustrating that can be for a teacher who is not teaching you that way. And so at one point, my favorite moment in all of my music education was when my very proper classical teacher, she got so fed up with me. She's like, fine, if you're going to go home and just memorize this, and then come back and look at your hands the whole lesson, then I'm gonna play it for you before you leave. I'm gonna show you what I want it to sound like, and then you can go home and do your process and come back and show me what you did. So,
Yeah.
I feel like she gave up on me, but in a way, it gave me freedom to lean into that, the way that I did learn. And so I after taking lessons, I had that good foundation. I'm really thankful for it. But I played for pleasure. I'd write my own instrumental music, just kind of play around on the piano, and I'd pick out I remember playing the Forrest Gump movie, the soundtrack. I'd just pick it out on the piano and play that for my family and just have fun with it. And honestly, I didn't sing a whole lot until high school. My sister and I were driving back and forth from school. We lived in just a small town in Colorado for high school, and a lot of drive time to and from. And Shania Twain was on the radio, and I was singing along, and I remember her sitting there next to me driving, and she's like, you're keeping up. And she said, the tryouts for the school musical are coming up. You should consider trying out. And I'm like, what? I never,
Yeah.
what? And so at her encouragement, I did. And that was my first singing gig, was as Bloody Mary for South Pacific. It was really fun. I was a freshman and got that role. It was a lot of fun. And ever since then, I have just loved to sing for people because it just seemed to make people happy. I seemed to be able to connect with people with my voice. And that was a new dimension of relational connection for me. I'd never experienced the depth of something like that before. And I, have sung ever since in various capacities, but not until college was I ever on a worship team. And that has been a kind of an interesting, I call it a sanctification journey, because I haven't always done it with a true heart posture of worship. I definitely came into it, and maybe it was a bit of the leadership I was under, but it was very much a performance focus, wanting to do my best, wanting to sing as beautifully as I could, which is good.
That's very natural,
but
right?
I was missing, I was missing the heart of being a worship leader. And I feel like I've really grown into that. My current leadership at the church we attend now, man, I'm just so thankful for him. I was noticing that this morning. We were on a webinar together, and everything he would type into the chat, it was like, out of all the things in the chat, his advice or his input was the wisdom that I would want to write down, if I were sitting
Andrea,
there.
it's not, forgive me for interrupting. It's not unlike doing a job. It's not unlike something that you do all the time, because, I have gone back and looked at, I'll go back and watch services that we do in our church on the webcast. I'm like, man, I like that little chord I played there. I like that little run I did there. And I'll look at myself and I'm like, there are times, and I'm being very transparent, there are times I look like I just didn't want to be there. And I was probably
got to work on my worship face.
Well, yeah, I was probably, and you're singing to be, when you watch, that's a great point that you bring up. Performers are always trained to smile. They'll take the microphone and, they'll be projecting and it'll be like, I'm so happy to be here. And it's like, but we've been touring for the last 2 weeks and I'm ready to go home. Or
not being authentic.
Yeah, or it's a 2-hour concert and you see on their face, and if you could read their minds, it's probably like, I'm hungry. I just want this to be over with. Yeah, I'm so tired. Yeah, exactly, because you hit the nail on the head. Life gets in the way and life happens and things like that. Share with me a time, an obstacle that you overcame, something that and I don't want to get super personal. Like if there's something deep and dark that I want to respect you and your privacy on some things in your life, but take me through an obstacle that you overcame and the biggest lesson you learned from it.
Oh man. The first thing that comes to mind, and I'm just going to trust the Holy Spirit on this. So at our church that we've been at for now, over 13 years. And before that, I was part of a little church organization. Well, not even an organization, just a tiny church. And because I had a background in worship leading, you enter into a little church, you are like the person. That's just how little church congregations have to function, is, whatever giftedness exists in the church, it has to be used.
She can sing, she's it.
Right. She's our person. So, welcome. You're in charge now. So it,
that's how I started playing the organ at church in our church at 19.
Oh my goodness.
Can you play the organ? Yeah, and dummy me said, how hard can it be?
Oh dear.
You're the organist. Yeah. Well, that's 19-year-old. I would go back in time and slap 19-year-old me in the face. You know,
Yeah.
like you're idiot.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? But go ahead. I mean, you're 100% right. When it's a small congregation, you're the person. Oh, she can do it. You're it. You know. Tag.
Yeah, and I looking back, you know, because I encountered a moment where I was putting in a lot of time into serving at this little church, and I brought it to the leadership that I had an interest in becoming part of the staff, if that could it be a shift that I could make. Long story short, they voted against it in a very public member meeting that I was present for, and it just wasn't handled very well. And hindsight, I noticed that rocked me. Like, I felt that the people I had been serving didn't want me anymore, and I didn't have a very strong, solid faith back then. So yes, that was a hardship, but I'm really thankful that God had me walk through that and see where I was maybe coming at it for the wrong reasons, and what I've learned since then about the heart of service and about trusting his lead and his timing. So at my current church, I've been there for over 13 years and have eased into service. So that bad experience at the little church nearly stifled my desire to ever lead worship again, which is kind of scary to think that I might not have re-entered into that because it is such a joy of my life. So I'm really thankful that it was a safe place for me to regrow my confidence and to be led well. And I entered in on like a couple little teams here and there and just kind of starting to get my feet wet again. I noticed that it was different though. This time I was learning more about God. The relationships were different. The leadership was different. I was different. I was growing more in my love of God, and then hence my love of leading others to worship him. And so I feel like I've really grown in some beautiful ways out of that hardship. Something that I can really point to is probably something that I've learned the most, though, in this past probably decade or so. And this is what the Holy Spirit kind of brought to mind initially, but the backstory is kind of helpful. Is I had a really dear friend I'm an alto. So she was the soprano on the team that I sing with. I think we sang side by side once a month for about 8 years. And she passed away suddenly. She was 39, just out of the blue, completely unexpected. And they never really found out why. That rocked me to lose her. There's just something like, as you build relationships in worship, when you are worshiping the Lord side by side, a soprano to an alto, and I know you're part of a group, so you know what those deep connections you build with those people, what that's like. And for her to all of a sudden be gone, it left such a void in my life, and I really struggled to worship.
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton. You know, dreams are powerful pieces of intentional encouragement. We all have them. If you're a business owner, you've probably always dreamed of taking your sales to levels you've never seen before. I've got a guy that can help you with that. His name is Brad Norwood. My good buddy Brad has been on the Intentional Encourager podcast as a guest before, and he is a dream specialist. His company, Dream It Pro, offers incentive packages to travel to places such as the Masters, Kentucky Derby, the Super Bowl, even exotic places that you've always wanted to take your team, but you just didn't know how to do it. Brad's your guy. And oh, by the way, Brad's a certified bucket list coach, so he can help your team members achieve their personal dreams as well. I want you to go to www.dreamitpro.com and find out more, or call him directly at 479-466-6907. And by the way, tell him you heard it on the Intentional Encourager podcast. Let's get back to more great conversation here on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
In the same way I had before. But we were talking earlier about authenticity in our worship. Those months following her death, I still was on the team. I still, and my worship pastor was so gracious. He didn't fill her spot for almost a year. He let us grieve her loss as a team.
You know what you're talking about really a lot of times is it's hard when you're sitting there going, I have to keep singing these songs and I have to keep going, but I have no idea, Lord, why you allowed this to happen.
Yeah.
And you're going, he's worthy to be praised, and inside you're going, but why did you take my friend? It's an internal, Andrea, it's an internal struggle that a lot of people don't see.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's an internal struggle of, we're happy, we're worshiping, and inside I am struggling.
Yeah.
It's like if you could see what's really going on inside my head.
Yeah.
Because I can empathize in that moment, right? Because you're trying to lead others in worship and trying to be positive and but your heart's broken.
But here's the thing, in the process, I learned, because I wasn't good about wearing a mask during those months following, and people would see it. People could see me struggling. They knew she was part of our church family, so they knew. My worship pastor knew, and there were times where my grief would come across right there in front of everyone. And
did you think about ever taking some time and just going, I need a couple weeks I need a couple weeks here? I
did. And I was given permission to do so.
What did that do for you, taking that time?
But I didn't take the time.
Well, I listen, totally, the reason I'm asking you this question for a particular reason, because I had a similar situation when I lost my dad. My dad died suddenly, and I just kind of powered through it like, okay, yeah, I'm not really here, but I got to be here, so let's make the best of it.
Right.
And people don't understand how, and I don't want to speak for you. I'm trying to put myself in the moment, having been in a similar moment. You just sit there and you go, there are days I'd rather be anywhere but here.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were days it's like, I'll share this real quick with the audience and with you. The first Father's Day after my dad died, his church that he pastored asked me to come and preach. I did really good until I saw his picture in the corner.
Oof,
because last Father's Day he was here, and I would always, the 3 years he pastored, I'd go to my church that morning, and then I'd go to his church to be with him on Father's Day. And you talked about looking over to the right or the left, wherever you stood next to your friend, and they weren't there, and it hits you like a ton of bricks, and it's like, in that moment, all you want to do is like, can I just run out of here and cry for just a minute?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you felt that way, but I have to imagine from what you were saying, I kind of imagine that, people that are listening are like, yeah, I totally get that. I totally empathize with that. Take me to that moment where you started to heal, where it didn't, when you looked over there, and I don't know if you ever had a moment like this, that you transition from sorrow to joy, where you look over and you smile because it's like, yeah, I miss my friend, but I know where she is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that is the anchor of the soul. In situations like that, we have to be anchored there. If we aren't, then grief just takes hold. Um, and it was okay to walk that line of grief with my church family. And for them to see that authenticity, that actually impacted a lot of hearts. And as vulnerable as that felt, that was actually, it was a good thing. It ended up, God used it for good, and he used it for good in my own heart, because honestly, leading worship with my church family it's healing for me. It's a huge part of my faith to be able to do that. It's an encouragement to me, but I do remember shifting more to a posture of thanks, for the time that I did have with her. There are certain songs that we would sing together, and she would do something special that only she would do if our team was up and singing. And to this day, whenever we do those songs, I can still hear that. I could, and it's not being sung through the sound system, but I can still hear it in my head. I can still hear her do the little extra riffs, or the little cadence, how she does that cadence. And I'm really thankful for that. I'm really thankful for that history, and that she's still present in my life in that way.
I can hear my dad singing songs to me at times.
Right?
Exactly. Like I pulled in the driveway one day. And it was like a song that I heard my dad sing when I was a kid, or maybe an early teenager. And I was like, I heard him sing it in my head, and I'm like, oh wow, this is weird, but
it's a gift.
It's a comfort, right? Yeah, it's a comfort. And I don't know, when you're doing something very public like that, I think it's hard for people to realize that there are times that you need to be comforted as much as you're trying to give comfort.
Mm.
And, understanding that. Did something change about you? Did you have did it change the way you sang? Did that experience change the way you wrote? How did that experience of losing that dear friend, how did it forever change and impact you going forward?
Yeah. So many ways. I had never experienced that before. So just the loss of somebody so close to me, and in such a sudden way, that there's a trauma to that. So I've had to navigate that and understand what it was, that I was struggling with. And, man, I've wrestled with God on a lot of issues surrounding just that. Like, is he still good? And I've written some songs about his goodness. Is he sovereign over it all? Yes, he is. Can we trust him? Yes, we can. Like, I see this kind of unfolding in my faith, navigating all this, and how it's come out in my music. And I'm really thankful for that. And the songs that I connect with most at church, the ones that we lead, there are certain ones I'll start into and I'm like, oh, I love this one. And I try to figure out, like, what is it about it that I love? And it's a lot of the same themes that I've been really drawn to, and doing my own writing from some of those same themes of lament, or just feeling a sense of loss or loneliness, but wanting to really be anchored in hope of the eternal future. And so, like, it's really been amazing to watch God use this loss in my life to bring about not only music, but to strengthen my faith, and to that I can comfort others in their loss and grief, not only maybe through my music, but through one-on-one across the table conversations. Or now I get to work at my church, and so they know they can call me right there at the front office and tell me about what's going on, and I can talk with them about it and pray with them right over the phone. And it's such good thing. I'm really thankful to be able to do that for others now too. So.
That's awesome. Andrea, share with me or somebody that's out there that has, maybe they're trying to write a book, maybe they're trying to write a song, maybe they're trying to write music. They're trying to do something creative in their own lives, but they just don't know how. They just, how do I really tell people how I'm feeling in the midst of this loss? How do I creatively share this? Share with this audience as we bring this episode to a close. Share with me your biggest piece of intentional encouragement.
Oh, I love encouraging other creative people. Or just the heart of creatives. I get to work with artists in my church family a lot. And the hardest thing I get to do is to encourage them forward, to take an idea or even a desire for an idea and to bring it to fruition. And I think the thing I find myself encouraging everyone to do most often is to just try, to kind of get over the fear of doing something wrong or it not being perfect, or just try and to enjoy the process. The biggest gift of the creative life is the process. Like the joy of creating is it's a gift in and of itself. And I think sometimes it depends on the personality maybe, but we can forget that. Like it's a gift. And it's, I need to write down some song lyrics tonight. I have a goal. Yes, it's going to feel like trudging through because I'm not feeling very creative. But again, if I just try, who knows, maybe something amazing will come out of it. I sometimes sit down with paints and paintbrushes just kind of for art therapy. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so it can be really kind of tedious work. But I still try to sit back every once in a while and just take a beat and enjoy what's happening, enjoy the process. And do I share everything and anything out with the world? No. What I have found is, get stuff out there, get it, from your head onto the paper or, whatever medium that looks like. And then, trust God with the rest. If you write something or do something, create something that you are kind of just coming back to in your mind over and over and over again, find a trusted friend to share it with and get their feedback. Trusted being the key word there. Make sure it's somebody who loves you, but doesn't love you so much that they would say anything is awesome. So, like your mom probably thinks everything you do is awesome. So maybe find somebody who knows you well, but wants the best for you as well.
Yeah, don't get passive encouragement it's be like, you're great.
You're so great.
100%. Yeah. Hey, you can find Andrea. You can find her work at AndreaSandefurmusic.com. Mm-hmm. You can find her on Instagram at Andrea Sandefur Music. That's SANDEFUR. There it is. And you can also find her podcast at theophanymedia.com under the Creatively Christian podcast. Andrea, I am so thankful that we had this conversation.
Yeah, this has been great.
Appreciative. Yes. Thank you for joining me on the Intentional Encourage podcast. My thanks as always to producer Bryce Sexton and technical advisor Matt Means. And of course, the ultimate thanks goes to the Lord Jesus Christ, who provides intentional encouragement every day through his word. If you're not subscribed to the Intentional Encourager podcast, hit the subscribe button wherever you get podcasts so you don't miss an exciting episode where you can get encouraged and stay encouraged. And remember, anyone, anywhere, at any time, any place can be an intentional encourager.